I'm in the chic Chelsea district of Manhattan, standing in front of what once was a seedy haven for gay men. This used to be the Everard Bathhouse, and it operated for over a century. But in 1977, it became the site of one of the most notorious fires in the city's history, where over 100 people were trapped inside and 9 had perished. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Sal Bono, and this is New York Gritty.
Following the Stonewall riots of 1969, things began to change for the gay community in New York City.
That was a window of time where gay men thought with their genitals and just went romping. There was sex everywhere. Bars had back rooms where you could have sex. There were parked trucks in the West Village where you could walk in there and have sex. People were having sex on the piers. And there were bathhouses everywhere that had been there for a long time, like the Everard, which had always catered to men having sex with each other anonymously. There were fancy bathhouses like the Continental uptown. That's where they also had flashy entertainment like Bette Midler. She became a star performing to gay men in towels. The Everard wasn't like that. It was run down, it was ratty, but it was all about gay men having sex. And the heyday, really, of that place was the 1970s. The Everard had been around for decades, and it had long been a home to people like Truman Capote and Gore Vidal. All these gay icons somehow felt comfortable sneaking in there and playing around. It just was totally accepted.
The Everard Baths were a Victorian Turkish bath founded by financier James Everard and opened in 1888. It became quite popular with locals and military personnel who were visiting the city at that time, but by the roaring 20s, it was a haven for gay men. It had been raided many times by police for lewd acts and behavior. But despite the raids, it continued operations. Owners would come and go, but by the 1960s, it was owned and operated by Irving Fine. Under Fine, the Everard began to get run down.
The baths appeal to that dichotomy where it's available, romp around, enjoy yourself, have your immediate hedonism, but also it's a little bit shady, it's dark, it's run down in the case of Everard. And I think in some ways that was sexually appealing to some guys that we're still in the shadows, but we don't have to worry about being arrested this time.
You could make a buck off the gay community. They didn't have that many options, so.
While the Everard might not have been the fanciest of places and clearly a danger to patrons, it was very cheap, which played a role in its biggest tragedy. The Everard was ordered by the FDNY to install a sprinkler system back in 1964. However, management won an appeal against the city and didn't put one in. In 1976, however, they were ordered again to install a sprinkler, which they did, but it had not yet been connected to the water main on the street. The Everard also reportedly had no fire escapes, and that the owners had sealed the windows covered over with sheetrock.
On the morning of May 25, 1977, a fire broke out on the second floor and quickly spread throughout the building, causing the roof to collapse.
One of the firefighters who responded to the scene, Robert Ribby, told me about the hellscape that he witnessed that terrible spring morning.
Well, it was early in the morning. It had to be about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, I guess. You can't see too much. You can't see that much at all, you know? You're just following your gut and doing what you have to do. We knew there was a life involved. And we went up and we started. In fact, our lieutenant was in front of us. And he was pulling out. We were in these little cubicles. These little cubicles up on the, I guess, the second and third floor. We were taking people and pulling people out of these little cubicles. And we were passing them back. We were taking somebody, finding somebody. We didn't know if it was alive or dead. There were a lot of people that we knew that was alive. But the lieutenant, he seemed to be the guy doing the best job. He was pulling people, passing them to us, and then we were passing them back to other firemen.
In 1977, the New York City Fire Department recorded 129,619 fires. Most of those didn't make the newspapers and didn't make even local news. But this one did. What do you make of that? This story also made national news.
There were so many fires at this time, but This story made the news, whereas the other fires generally didn't. I think because of the sensational aspect. It was a gay bathhouse. It was men walking around in towels, having anonymous sex. There was something scary about it to outsiders. Oh, look at these, hedonistic freaks. And there was something appealing about it to gay men who at that point were just having a great old time. That aspect of the story was irresistible to the media, and the gay media really just could not stop writing about it because of the danger aspect of it. We had to make sure this didn't happen again.
A dozen people, including 2 firefighters, were injured in the blaze. 9 people died in the fire. The youngest was a 17-year-old who was staying in one of the cubicles, and the oldest was a 40-year-old who was reportedly visiting the bathhouse. Most of the victims of the fire were not identified by family members, but by friends, and many were buried at Potter's Field on Hart Island just off the coast of the Bronx. Authorities never determined the definitive cause of the fire. The owner of the Everard was never charged with any crime or ever fined. It reopened a year later.
It's a real spotlight on slumlords and the conditions in which gay people were forced to just negotiate. And as you know, that within a year it reopened. So that had to have been a very quick and shoddy. I mean, the top 2 floors were burned out and collapsed, the roof collapsed and everything else. So it's just truly, absolutely amazing that it reopened. And that said, it just shows again how profitable it is for people, for any minority communities to exploit them and give them whatever there is.
While the Everard reopened in 1978, it wasn't the renovations that brought in new clientele. It still remained dodgy and seedy. But, like all bathhouses, it became the target of New York City Mayor Ed Koch and was forced to close.
Another bathhouse has been shut down as New York City fights to prevent the spread of AIDS. Closed last night was the Everard Spa on the west side, the 4th bathhouse shut down under the city's policy that homosexual activity in that kind of place leads to more cases of AIDS.
AIDS made the bathhouses arguably a very unsafe idea, because at this point you could get AIDS and contract it from one sexual encounter. And if you had multiple encounters at a bathhouse, obviously you were increasing your chances very much. And Ed Koch, who himself was a closeted gay man, and generally was under attack by Larry Kramer, the gay activist, for not doing enough for gays, he eventually felt that the bathhouses, including the straight one, Plato's Retreat, had to be shuttered.
While the Everard Bathhouse may be no more, its building still stands, and today is just a typical Manhattan retail spot. However, its legacy lives on, as the NYC LGBTQ Historic Sites Project named it an important part of history, not just in New York City, but in the country. Why did the Everard make your list of historic sites? Why was it so important to profile this place?
Well, it was the oldest and the longest lasting. Even the name is a legendary name.